Welcome to another Tuesday Temple of Light Center for Spiritual Living Healing Service. I am Tamu Davidson, your Science of Mind practitioner, and our topic today, we're going to be looking at breaking the chain, awakening the inner liberator. But as usual, we will bring the Spirit and center of God here and the presence of God within this session. So we're knowing that God, the one source, the one spirit, God, the divine right action, that God, we are one with this one spirit. We're knowing for this session today, healing service, that all who participate, whether live or watch this video later on, will take from it the embodiment of spirit. That spirit, that thought will impact on each and everyone's lives. And so wherever you are in your spiritual journey, today's session will resonate with you. We're knowing this as we anchor the Spirit of God that expresses through all this divine spirit. And so we release this to the law of mind for action, knowing that this is so, and so it is. So once again, welcome. And at this time, we will go into the silence. I want you to take a deep breath. Inhale and exhale. And just wherever you are, whether you're driving, you can focus and just be still. If it's convenient for you, you can close your eyes. And I take you into this space. And so we take a deep, we gradually open our eyes as we come from this period of silence and stillness. And so once again, welcome. Welcome to those who may be joining us for the first time live or may join us later. Welcome back to those who are part of our spiritual community or members of the Temple of Light. We're certainly happy to have you on board today. Now, today we have a very interesting topic tied to the Jamaican independence and emancipation that's coming up. And the 1st of August is in fact celebrated in many, many countries around the Caribbean as the Emancipation Day. And so this is why one of the reasons this topic was chosen. And we're looking at breaking the chain, awakening the inner liberator. So we remember Bob Marley's song, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. So this is the redemption song from the 1980s by Bob Marley. And emancipation is not only about the abolition of physical slavery, but also it calls us to free ourselves from mental, emotional, and spiritual bondage. So if we think of the science of mind perspective, we talk about freedom begins in consciousness. So you can be a slave to your consciousness of negative thoughts, and attract that into your experience. So Ernest Holmes says, and taught us, change your thinking, change your life. And so it is through that changing of your thinking that we're awakening or breaking that chain and change your life, awakening that inner liberator. So even in 2025, I would like to ask you, what mental chains might you still be carrying? Anyone here on Zoom or on YouTube? Would anyone like to share what mental chains you may still be carrying? Anyone wants to share for 2025? Yes. Any mental chains? So I think, I do have my mental chains that I do think I'm still carrying that I, need to break. And I think over my spiritual journey, I'm getting there. And, always reminding myself that the law, we are always in divine time, that sometimes you wonder, am I where I should have been? Why is a particular journey, particular goal not working out? And why am I not obtaining it? I recently asked myself, is this the right pathway for me? And one of the things I remember that every disappointment is a lesson and something that is really pushing you towards your greatest expression and highest divine expression goal of yourself. So there are many roads and pathways towards meeting your goal, but these are not things that um, that are going to hold you back. These are not things that we should be disappointed about, but learn from them and recognize that it is just a divine pathway and everything works in divine time. And so knowing that and coming from that place is also important in breaking the chain. So, that's for me for 2025. And I hope some of you will share as I go along. So that's the mental chain I'm carrying, is that I still, go back to that knee-jerk default situation to say, okay, why am I not achieving this? Why haven't met that goal? And sometimes inherently in my background or profession as a physician or public health specialist, we tend to be very overachievers and driven. And so sometimes we look at that. And I've been able to appreciate that these are just lessons, going back to reminding myself, these are just lessons. There's no need to worry, no need to stress. You are moving along through that divine expression of your highest self, and there is more on the horizon for you. So Marcus Garvey said, none but ourselves can free the mind, in his speech in 1937. And many of Bob Marley's lyrics comes directly from Garvey's call for self-reliance and mental emancipation. And so, it relies very much on us to do that type of emancipation. So I manage many different teams. And, one of the things that, is encourage our team members, many of them feel, when they are having interpersonal issues, causes a lot of this emotional distress. And they focus a lot on the person that's causing this stress. And what we call, sometimes we say, we give up that power. And why is the person treating me this way? Why they're not obtaining? I'm really trying to do my best And, major emotional distress that, it causes is something that's on their mind constantly, affecting them in many areas of their lives. But very often they also don't accept some responsibility for that journey. And so I take some of my Science of Mind teachings there to encourage and just to remind that um, by through that reaction, it's all about you and how you experience it. And what are some of the ways you can see this experience as demanding growth? Looking at it in a different point of view or vantage point. And so once they start to see that, a lot of those stress and distress, a situation that would have distressed them no longer causes that stress and disappointment. And then, it's interesting to see them move past that and begin to have a more positive experience. And I myself had many of those personal examples where you clash with personalities and sometimes they don't treat you the way you should. And then down the line, um, a recent example we had where we had booked a supplier to do a particular job, and the supplier was known to do good, high quality work and just could not produce the job we had asked the supplier to do. And then we kind of got annoyed, default petition, oh, the supplier, why is the supplier, she not delivering as we wanted it to be done? And we said, you know what, we will do it, we'll show them how it can be done, and let's move forward. And what we found out was this individual was actually going through a lot of emotional pain and distress, and in fact shared that. And we recognize, again, reminding us that it's how we experienced it. And the supplier was going through their own issues, personal issues, which was impacting on the quality of the job. But at the end, what happened, having understood that, what happened, we ended up with a project far superb that really, really passed our own expectations of what we wanted, and certainly was superb. But this human is always going through distress. And so very often I say to my team, many of the reactions or responses to you have nothing to do with you on the other end. It's really how we respond to these. And so one of the things we have continued to do is to ensure to have a positive and supportive response. And so I think that that is how we have experienced it in breaking the chain, this mental chain of being, the supplier opened up to us and our team because we responded in a very positive and supportive manner. So we broke that chain of thinking that this was something personal in terms of towards us, in terms of how they delivered the product or the quality of the product. So that is what I would, want to share. But anyone wants to share, what are some of the beliefs or narrative you have inherited that you think it's time to release? Slavery resides in fear, self-doubt, scarcity thinking. Spiritual freedom comes from when we affirm, I'm more than my history, I'm an expression of infinite mind. So what belief or narrative have you inherited that it's time to release? Anyone wants to share? Here or online?
Hi, Tamu.
Yeah. Yes,
Carol.
go ahead, Carol.
Well, I'm sure many of us grew up with I'm the name of my era. Let me pull. If you want good, your nose must run. You know,
Yes.
it means that
Mhm.
everything must be hard. If it's not hard, then you didn't work hard enough.
That's true.
So
Mhm.
you need to release that.
Yes. And that is so true. And for myself, I'm inheriting a mantra that I also share with my team, and we realize that is a very important one. If you want good, you have to work hard, it's that for run. And that's so inherent. Another one is you need to eat everything in your plate because of the starving people, in other countries. And so you'd overeat or overindulge. But one of the things that I would say I shifted for me was another say. So I shifted from you want, in if you need to work hard or you know it's a run, is that you need to work smarter than harder. And in fact, I've used that mantra to actually shift course direct out of if you work harder. So I think if you work hard, that's going to get you where you need to go or what you need to do, but work smarter than harder. And I can say I got that from Reverend Sonia, who, when I was in the working world, it's still that sort of belief and background. So that's something that I found worked, resonated for me. And so I try to work with that. So there are many other sayings. Anyone wants to share any other beliefs? So also one of the things that I would be teased with how I spoke English, um, and I was speaking, in from being a Jamaican, people would say, "Are you sure you're Jamaican?" Because you speak so properly. Um, are you sure you're Jamaican? And I get that in different circles, mainly outside of Jamaica, really outside of Jamaica. Um, and then so I would be framed as what they call, I did not know, I learned this slang recently, UPT, uptown. So the new slang for uptown. So UPT. And I began to really, as an adult, to embrace the fact that, yes, I may be UPT in how I conduct myself, but I'm still Jamaican. And that doesn't diminish my Jamaicanness. And so that's something I had to release and move forward and embrace that kind of title. But I see myself Jamaican in all my Jamaicanness, whether it is speaking properly, speaking the patois, whatever aspect. And so I embrace my Jamaicanness as one of the unique expressions of being Jamaican. So for me, that was a recent change, because being as they say, UPT now was a stigma and is constantly teased around being the perception of being UPT in the eyes of persons who interface with me. So yes, so that was one. So
There
I
is
want, yes,
there's
go ahead. Is
someone
there a hand?
online,
Yes. Go.
Elaine Johnson,
Yes.
who is
Go ahead.
saying being comfortable with saying no when there are overwhelming or unreasonable expectations placed on me, not necessary to say yes to prove my value or make everyone happy. That is from Elaine.
Wow, wow. Boy, that's a big one, Elaine. And that triggered some memories for myself as a public health professional. I do have that weakness that I'm still working through to say no. I think I've said no more. But yes, it is difficult, to say more because you want to serve and support everyone. But that's a big one that, yes, many of us have to work through. That's a big one, or even admit to. Yes. Yes. So
Interesting that you spoke about the uptown situation, usually associated with speaking properly or speaking proper English, I should say,
yes.
because a lot of our great intellectuals, Marcus Garvey among them, are rural folk who would have grown up speaking in the Jamaican language, right? But then, because of their scholarly aspirations, you know, language changed, and of course, in a foreign environment, to be understood, if you are speaking the slave master's tongue, you better speak it properly, or sensibly, grammar and everything else, so that you can be understood. So it's nothing to do with about uptown and thing. But there are some stigmas that have been attached to that particular one about uptown, as if it is cool, to be able to not share your ideas, in a sensible manner, a comprehensible manner, and so that is a big one, and that is coming from way, 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 way back. But unfortunately,
Yes.
it seems to be having a resurgence these days.
Yes. Yes. So as I said, I learned a new slang from my colleague UPT, you know. As I said, there's a new saying UPT, very good point. So there are many things that, even as we take our own journey as persons who have been part of this spiritual truth, the journey is for everyone. Our ministers continue, we continue as practitioners, and many persons continue the journey and to address things that have been instilled. Sometimes they're so deep within our subconscious that we don't recognize. However, one thing we can do is break away when we think of some of these things that chain us is fear. And recently I can share, I had experienced, I would say my first break-in as an adult. This was the second time I'd experienced a break-in ever. But what I experienced it as an adult recently. And one of the things I recall that night, so I went on her unscathed, but I was told and it was shared that there many people don't come out of this unscathed. And I didn't even know that it occurred. I wouldn't have known until just by chance. And I would say there were many divine in events that happened that allowed me to even know that such a break-in occurred while I was in my home. But when it did occur, my mind was at peace. I didn't feel any anxiety, and I felt a stillness. And I said, oh my gosh, I really have broken that chain. I felt at peace. And this is why it's important to liberate your consciousness. And as cliche it may seem, my experience happened where I was alerted to that such a break-in occurred, but my whole demeanor, consciousness, experience was one of peace. So did not attract any negative experience. They only took some money, they didn't take anything else. But I discovered that it occurred just simply because it was a chain of events that would not have happened if I hadn't done a mistake. What I saw as a mistake became I would say pathway. And I could say this, I took about my mother's bag mistakenly and placed it in my apartment, which I've never done. Doesn't look like my bag. And it was actually trying to find her bag that I discovered that there was a break-in. And so, or her, helping to find that bag. And so one thing that I assumed was a mistake at the, in the night when I came and I said, how could I do this? Take up this bag instead of my bag and place it in my room and house, and my bag was still in the car. But it turned out that this was not a mistake, it was a divine intervention to alert me that I was having visitors that I was not aware of. I'd put it that way. So you see how you're having your consciousness open, free, and in a frame of mind can attract to you this divine sort of pathway that you're liberated. So I felt it was because I was liberated. My inner peace was liberated. So I didn't attract any negative experience. But what happened was this spiritual journey pointed me out to what had occurred so I could take any necessary action after that. So that was my experience. And so whilst a lot of people were anxious about it, I thought, wow, look at that. And so also in awakening that inner liberator, that is personal for you. So I would say a caution is to ensure that you also attract those, well, you'll begin to attract those with like mind and like thoughts, but also be mindful that the race consciousness can be powerful. There's persons who are called, are you okay? Wow, this is, invasion of privacy. And I had to fall back on my spiritual mind treatment, and also, again, which you should be doing, routinely praying for yourself, whether it's spiritual mind treatment or any other prayer, or just your own spiritual contemplation and clearing the mind in order to ensure that you're continue to maintain that consciousness and awaken, continue to ensure that inner liberator continues to be awakened. And when you awaken it, you have to maintain it. And maintaining that is certainly through spiritual mind treatment or prayer or whatever affirmation or whatever stillness or meditation that you would do to fine-tune your consciousness. So I had to be mindful that in this experience, I did not attract the negativity, and fear that can come with such an experience. And yeah, so I think that was important for me. No, one of the things I want to reflect on, so Garvey says we are going to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery because whilst others might free the body, none but ourselves can free the mind. And Science of Mind talks about the inner liberator is our higher self, the divine consciousness within. So these are some practical steps in awakening this inner liberator. So whilst we do the spiritual mind treatment or prayer or your own centering, whether it's meditation, the yoga gets you there, your own spiritual practice, that awakening this inner liberator, one of the things I like encourage us to do is affirmations. And affirmations, whichever spiritual practice or religious background you have, if you're not with the New Thought movement. And so I want to share this affirmation. I'm going to invite us all to repeat after me. I release every false chain and claim my divine inheritance of freedom. So you can repeat this, you can write this, you can reshape it to be personal to you. I release every false chain and claim my divine inheritance of freedom. Again, affirmation, visioning is another way of breaking this chain. So you see yourself as Garvey envisioned, or any thought, new thoughts, or thought leader as self-determined, liberated, forward-thinking being. So visualize yourself. And you can do this practice. Affirmation only takes around not even a minute. You can stick it around your own home, wherever you go within your car. You can find that just a few minutes out of time, just 5 minutes. Let's say you commit to 5 or 3 minutes to do this. And so, you know, Bob Marley in his lyrics, he said, and as a spiritual chant, he says, none but ourselves can free our minds. So that's something that you also can do as a chant. None but ourselves can free our minds. One other singer I really like in terms of his lyrics that also helps you to get into this awakening, and it's Chronix. So Chronix has a song where he says, you look up into the hills. And I think that's also another one. Whatever, there may be other artists, song, musicians that really feed into the same narrative about none what ourselves can free our minds. So if you truly believe you are free and powerful, what would you dare to do? Anyone wants to share one thing you would dare to do if you truly believe that? And I do believe that. But do I truly believe that? Maybe there are some things that are hanging me back, holding me on. But what would you dare to do? Yes. For me, I would continue. A big dare is to say no. When I know I need to say no, I cannot take on a particular activity at work. Say no, I'm unable to do this.
Go visit my ancestral home in Africa.
Nice. Yes, that's on my bucket list too. Visiting your ancestral home. What else would you dare to do? Well, I have this hairstyle. I've never worn this hairstyle. Box braids. I dare to do that for my work style. That was a big dare for me. May seem very commonplace, but I've never done this hairstyle. And I also wore sneakers to an event today at work. And usually I'd be dressed in regular shoes. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, so think about that, reflect on that. And, you know, you may want to reflect on it at home or to yourself as you go. So here are some other applications that we can do to really, you know, get to that space of breaking that chain, awakening the inner liberator. So Garvey's call to action and Holmes' Science of Mind says, you know, affirmations, speak words of liberation daily. Forgive, very, very important. Forgive yourself. Release any resentment that may hold you, anchor that mental chain that you don't want. Visualization, again, we mentioned science and healing treatment prayers are important. So our affirmation is today I break the chain, I awaken the liberator within, I think boldly, act courageously, and live freely. So this is my affirmation for you today. All right, can we repeat that again? Today, can we all repeat it? Today, for those who can speak online, can you join me? Today, I break the chain. I awaken the liberator within. I think boldly and act courageously and live freely. So Emancipation Day is both a remembrance and renewal. Garvey says, free minds with visions. Marley, freed minds with music. And we free minds by choosing daily spiritual liberation through our spiritual practice, affirmation, visioning, and spiritual mind treatments or prayers. And so emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. And so I'm going to close this section with a guided affirmative meditation. So I'm going to invite everyone to close their eyes or to be still. And so take a deep breath and exhale. Feel yourself rooted to the presence in this moment, connected to the spiritual ancestors who dreamed of freedom for you, and the spirit within you that has always been free. Hear Marcus Garvey's words. We are going to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free this mind. Feel these words resonate in your heart. Now silently affirm to yourself, I release every mental chain. I free my mind. I am spirit expressing freedom now. Awakening the liberator, imagine a radiant light within you, your inner liberator expanding in each breath that you take that breath in and out. With each inhale, it dissolves fear, doubt, and limitation. With each exhale, you stand taller in courage, dignity, and self-knowing. Claiming freedom, Bob Marley lyrics rises within you and says, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Whisper this inwardly or aloud and let it become your mantra of liberation. Emancipate yourself, right? So you say, emancipate myself from mental slavery. None but myself can free my mind. And so we take a deep breath in and out. We open our eyes. So again, today I break the chain. I awaken the liberator within me. I think boldly. I act courageously. I live freely, and so it is. So at this time, I'm going to invite you to see, do we have any spiritual mind treatment requests online? I see here God is I am and is well. I keep reminding myself today boldly. Thank you, Dawn. I see Carol says, I think boldly and act courageously. And then Dawn says, healthy body in full. Beautiful, beautiful. So any prayers for today? I just shared the affirmation in the chat. Yes, any prayers for today?
I believe that was a request from Dawn.
Dawn, oh, healthy body in full. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to just know this for Dawn and for anyone, anyone else that may resonate with. We're knowing the divine spirit of God, God all that there is, all-knowing, God of health and wholeness. And we're knowing health and wholeness is experienced by thee. We're knowing that every atom, every cell, every aspect, organ, every molecule unfolds and vibrates in its divine unity, healing, repairing, unfolding as spirit. And we're knowing all that is required, reveals itself, all that needs to be repaired is already repaired as this divine temple expressed as form, as body, through the spirit unfolding as dawn expressed, continues to use and unfold as wholeness and completeness. So the perfection of Dawn, we're knowing that she is that divine perfection of spirit of God. And we release it to the law of mind for action, knowing that all is well, and so it is. Okay? All right, anyone else? Any more treatment requests today? Any retreatments? Okay, for peace and harmony, for the island, okay, and for life. Thank you, Michael. So we're knowing that divine God, one spirit, this one spirit of peace unfolding, the island of Jamaica is covered with, embodied in, embraced in, and one with this one source as this perfect source acts as law, as peace unfolding. And we're knowing that in every nook, cranny, community expressed, we're knowing that each and every one that comes in contact with or Rev Michael, anyone who is part of this island, the island continues to unfold. We continue to have harmonious relationships. All relationships unfold from that divine one source centered in each of us as children of God. As we continue to radiate peace, tranquility, continue in all those communities. And so everyone continues to feel this light radiating from our island, within our communities, the light of peace. And so we know this to be the truth of Jamaica. And we know this to be the truth for Reverend Michael and for every member of our community. And we release this to the law of mind for action, knowing that this is so and so it is. Okay. Any other treatment? Treat for all soldiers everywhere. Okay. And so we're knowing that God, the divine one source of love and protection. And we're knowing all soldiers, whether they're within the front line in active duty, whether they're in their homes, whether they have already served, we're knowing and embracing through this love and light of God as that one source is embracing you through that one source. We're knowing love, knowing light, peace of God expresses in and through your lives. We're knowing your families feel this peace emanating through you. And we're knowing wherever you are, that you walk with light, you walk in peace, you walk within the divine embrace of God. Because God continues to operate and spirit as love and law and light. You continue to be the perfect expression. And so we're knowing that you're protected through this divine source. And so we release this to the law of mind for action, knowing that this is so, and so it is. Okay, do you have
And
any
so it
other
is.
treatments?
Yeah,
Okay.
Elaine Johnson,
Yes.
right decisions and right action in plans
Okay.
to retire and move back to Jamaica.
Okay.
She's working on that.
Okay. And so God, spirit, universal spirit operates as right action And we're knowing right action for Elaine, who is one with this one source. We're knowing all her decisions as she embarks on this new phase of her life. This is her divine path, her divine spiritual journey. And so we're knowing all that she needs, all that she desires are already in place and unfolding and accelerating towards her divine and spiritual journey as she continues this through her retirement into this new phase. And so we're knowing she continues to express this divine spirit. And so right action continues to unfold on her journey. And so we release this to the law of mind for action, knowing that this is so, and so it is. Okay, any more treatments? I think we would have covered everything this time. Thank you. So at this time, I am going to go into some of our announcements at this journey, part of the journey. Just give me a moment to get this on slideshow going. All right, so we are going to our announcements and some of our important reminders. So join us weekly for a grief support group. We continue to provide this service to all our members and non-members. So whatever religious denomination you are, wherever you are in Jamaica, or if you're not a part of that, we offer this from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Persons are welcome, and it's facilitated by our own grief therapist, Lorraine Jones Lawrence. And you can visit us at the Temple of Light, 4 to 6 Fairway Avenue. This Sunday, very exciting, the 3rd of August, Reverend Michelle in her office will do new members orientation. So remember, new members, please do not forget, note this in your diary, save this date on your calendar. Dreaming of drumming or strumming a guitar? I know this is so exciting. I am a member of this group. You need to join us on Sunday at 2 p.m. But we do have a little fellowship at 1:45 p.m. So I'm going to encourage you to get there 15 minutes earlier. And it's perfect for anyone who's curious and wants to play it. So let us pray with you. We do have our spiritual mind service, and that is going to be done next week, Tuesday, by the Reverend Sonia Dynamic Davidson. So join us next week for our spiritual mind healing service. And then if you do feel moved to support our ministry, please feel free to donate at donate.templeoflightcsl.org. Thank you so much for your generosity and for helping us to be a beacon of light for the world. Now, at this time, we'll do our treatment, and for our divine offering and giving. So lovingly I give, joyfully I receive. Be thou fruitful, increase, and multiply. Bless, prosper, and enrich everyone whom you touch, and replenish all of my financial affairs. Thank you, Father, and so it is. At this time, we're going to do the prayers for a center. So the Temple of Light Center for Spiritual Living is a sacred field embodying our spiritual community from which the Christ, peace, love, and joy emanate. To touch, to heal, to bless, to prosper, and to liberate anyone who comes in contact with it in any way. The light of Christ illuminates us, our center, and our environment. Our spiritual community is filled with and surrounded by the presence of God and is growing from strength to strength. The power of God expands our consciousness of truth, guiding us ceaselessly along the paths of wisdom, spiritual growth, unfoldment, and attainment. We are blessed And to God be the honor and glory forever. And so it is. At this time, we'll do our prayer for Jamaica. The radiant light of God's love is now flowing through us and from us to everything and everyone it touches. The eternal light of God's love now completely fills, covers, and surrounds our island, Jamaica. The glowing intensity of the light of God's love now interpenetrates and awakens within the hearts and minds of countrymen and women. The truth of life, which sets free, the light of God's love is growing and glowing in intensity in the hearts and minds of mankind everywhere. Love, health, harmony, goodwill, peace, uprightness, integrity, joy, prosperity, kindness, and our oneness under God are now established, and so it is. So I will now remind you of our affirmation that I'd like you to retweak, create your own. You can use this. Think boldly, I act courageously, I live freely, and so it is. So at this time, we're going to do our closing treatment as we close out our session this evening. And so thank you for joining us. And so as we bring the presence of God, God, that one source, Spirit, the universe, everywhere, ever present, this one source of love, of freedom. And as we join with this one source, it reflects and emanates through us. We've broken our chain, we break this chain. We are liberated, we're free. We are free and we express this freedom through our spiritual, physical, all aspects of our life. This free inner chain, this awakening, this liberator, we have broken this chain. And this chain continues to operate as we have tapped into that divine spirit that says yes, that knows us, that we are perfect expression of this divine as we move through this spiritual journey. And so as we go, this divine spirit comes in contact with all aspects of our life. And we are awakened, we are renewed and liberated. And so I release this to the law of mind for action, knowing that this is so, and so it is. Thank you for joining us this week. Namaste. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week when you'll join us again for a healing service. Walk good, continue to that spiritual journey, and to all my Jamaicans, as we continue, we have emancipated ourselves from mental slavery. But remember, none but ourselves can free our minds. So continue to work to change your thinking, change your life, and awaken that inner liberator. Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you,
And
Tamu.
happy
Lovely service.
Emancipation Day. Happy
Happy
Emancipation.
Emancipation.